Ladies and gentlemen, it is that time. It is playoff time here at Collegiate R6. And over these next few weeks, we are not only going to see some of the highest stakes matchup yet, but we are going to see some of the best siege that this season has to offer. But before we get into this doubleheader, let me reintroduce my wonderful co-caster hailing from California, the man with the beautiful locks. It is, in fact, Chief on the desk with me tonight. Welcome, my friend.
What an intro. That was amazing. And just as amazing as our two teams doing battle today, Georgia versus Oklahoma. So it's a middle, west, and south, west, east. Wow, apparently my
There you
geography is
go.
bad over here on the West Coast. California is on an island, and I guess that's going to be our theme for today. I'm already pumped up, which means facts are going to go out the window, geography is going to go out the window, and I have a degree in finance, so clearly I don't know what I'm talking about.
Well, these two teams, they do know their way around a good map or two, and we're going to get a chance to take a look at our map bans in just a second here as the map bans start to roll on through. Now, you mentioned Georgia Chief, but there's a clear distinction. Georgia Tech is the team tonight. Georgia is a team in Premier Invite League, not to be confused with the 12 seed in the Open Division, Georgia Tech. And here are our bans. The first one's rolling on through. Coastline is gone. Consulate is gone. And map number one will be Oregon. That's going to be Georgia Tech's pick. And map number two, Oklahoma's pick, is going to be Cafe.
And since it's been a while since we've been in playoffs, just to remind you how the ban phase works, both teams are going to have the option of instantly removing one map. So we see Coastline and Consulate being removed, and then they enter in their pick phase. We'll decide the maps that they want to guarantee, followed up by two more bans, and then we go to our decider, wrapping up all 7 maps in the competitive pool. And it looks like we're going to have the T3 special. It is going to be Oregon, Cafe, and Clubhouse. T3 rosters just eat these 3 maps up. And no surprise, they're going to be where we do battle today.
Well, I want to talk about these teams, Chief, and especially the way that they're sitting in the overall seeding. Now, if you're new to the scene and you're just looking at this bracket, you would see 12 seed Georgia Tech and 21 seed Oklahoma. Now, that is not quite as simple as it may seem because you look at the divisions that they were in Open in the regular season, and you look at the strength of the schedule, you have to wonder, is this the exact right seeding that it should be, or should Oklahoma actually be ranked above Georgia Tech here? Because Georgia Tech, they had a pretty easy regular season. The only team that, would be considered really competitive they faced is Kettering, number 1 seed entering into the playoffs. But in the Gulf Coast Division, the one that Oklahoma found themselves in, they had to play Oklahoma State, the reigning Open Division champions, as you may remember, Chief, and they had to face the University of Texas at Dallas, a team favored to take it all the way to the finals against Oklahoma State. Now, these two teams are going head-to-head tonight, but which one is actually considered the favorite? Which one is actually the underdog? I'd argue, Chief, it is Oklahoma the favorites here, and Georgia Tech's the ones who have their work cut out for them here tonight.
But no more speculation. Let's actually talk about this best of 3 series, starting here on Oregon. The bane of Rainbow Six Siege. Every player dislikes him, which forces him straight into the rubbish bin. Thatcher is removed. And who will be joining him in the ban? Well, it's usually a hard breacher, and particularly Maverick. He's incredibly strong here on Oregon, simply because he can open up the north attic wall more or less for free, and the defenders won't have any options of shutting down that play. And there he goes. Now, the 2 defender bans are kind of up in the air. We've seen a lot of clashes from A and Z move their way through the ban phase, but I think Kaid is going to be a little bit stronger of a ban because you can put them in positions where the attackers will never have the opportunity of destroying them.
A fair point, and one that we're going to have to see in this final ban, especially because that Miro was that 4th one, and it's the 3rd one rather, but Goyo is going to be the last ban. And so it's definitely a common ban here on Oregon because those Vulcan shields feed into deployable shield city, which is the basement of Oregon. But the problem now is a Kaid is on the board. The Electro Claws, you said it, Chief, they will be in play, and they will be a pain for the attackers to deal with. It will make it even harder for any basement attack to get going. And of course, attic wall and closet wall, when you're that top floor, you can do some soft destruction from below and prevent those Kaid Electro Claws from being too painful. However, the basement site is where it gets to be a problem. You can consider that E-Box hatch as good as reinforced unless you want to bring a Kali, which really shakes things up and requires you to have a sniper, a tiny little SMG, and not a lot of utility other than those Kali lances to deal with those Electro Claws.
E-Box is a utility soak for the attackers, and it actually doesn't provide a large avenue for the attackers to push on through. They cut down one rotation of the defenders, and a competent team should put flank drones throughout the basement, provide information, and if they're cunning enough, they can work their way through the north stairs as well as the south stairs, and if it's an execute from J Bunker, they won't really need the E-Box hatch. But we can't even talk about that bomb site yet, since we're starting upstairs on the second floor over in dorms. And this bomb site has seen a lot of changes recently since the utility consumption simulator has gone away. Well, Mai was a primary operator for this band, or for this site, but he isn't even here to be seen, and it's going to force the attackers into a predicament. Are we going to go for the traditional execute from North Attic and also execute through South Games, or are we going to do a change up through the West Big Window?
Well, for now, your typical attack, it looks like, is being set up for the time being. You've got Thunderhawk bringing the Selmas that Ace wields as his primary gadget. Looks like that will be the mission of the Ace, to open up that closet wall. Jello Shots will be sure to remove that utility from below, but there is a little bit of this extended roam. You've got Turks, the Jaeger, holding out in the basement. And coming into this match, I wrote down a couple of players I wanted to keep my eye on. And on the side of Oklahoma, Rush and Turks, the players you're going to see roaming a lot tonight, are those players to watch. They are a constant thorn in the side of any attack, a persistent roam pressure, and a very talented roam pressure at that. And so to get this effective attack going, Georgia Tech is going to have to make a decision here. Either deal with this roam and clear it out quickly, or ignore it, go for the direct site push, and hope to have some good drones set on flank wash and get a good site take going before the roamers can be impactful.
Now, with the utility removed from North Attic, that means the attackers can get control and start to utilize that as a position to push on through. But as we hit 90 seconds, the attackers are a little bit slow on this execute. They need to start to flood through North Attic and deal with the APAC position of Cade playing deep on the south side, but they weren't prepared for the flank and the double take as everybody from Oklahoma is able to find the impact kills. Georgia Tech's too slow, which is forcing everybody into a body bag as we enter in a 1v5, one lone man as Thunderhawk is stuck in a terrible position over by Trophy.
Well, the impossible situation will be indeed impossible, and Turks on the flank will find the final blow and will deliver Oklahoma to a flawless round, a perfect round, and a clean round number one victory, a defensive victory that really never seemed like it was out of reach. And in round number one, a point of concern for Georgia Tech, making no progress, eliminating no defenders, not looking too good for them starting things off.
And that's the problem with dorms. You have to run your checklist in perfect time fashion. This is one of those maps where you as an IGL kind of need to know exactly where your other four players are going to be throughout a round. And if they start to fall behind on their executes, well, that's going to be on you to find ways of basically speeding things up. If that means presetting your Twitch drone earlier on, you need to do that. But more importantly, it's going to be where you put your hard breach and where you put your preset drones.
That's a great point, Chief, and it's something that we can see, the better teams really get those preset drones down perfectly. And good preset drones, like you said, enable a efficient roam clear, efficient removal of any offsite presence, and you can really make your attacks go a lot smoother from that point forward. And that's something that Georgia Tech may want to consider nailing down here as the rounds get further and further on. how do they counter this persistent roam? And right now, all their drones stacked up outside the J bunker here in construction. The point of focus for them appears like it is going to be a full J bunker push, a push that we see so often, but one that has mixed results because defenders, just like attackers, like to commit a lot of utility to this point. And so you're going to have a smoke sitting comfortably behind a deployable shield with every ADS right next to them, and they can do a very good job of stalling out this push and preventing any attackers from making headway from the east side.
Well, this is the adaptation I wanted Georgia Tech to make. They have doubled and tripled down on it. It's far too many drones looking in one direction. If the attackers set their drones up throughout the map, they would provide themselves with more information. But when you have 3 attackers droning a square foot of like 24, it's not going to be enough. You're going to have so much information in one small box, but the map is so large. You need to expand your view. And we're talking about attackers pushing down the north stairs. It's going to be imperative that they do so. They have the Hibana over here, but they aren't looking in the appropriate directions over by barrels. There's a nitrocell gripped and ripped. It's going downtown, but nobody on the receiving end as Hibana finds herself success pushing down north stairs.
Yeah, well, Turks is going to be on the receiving end of a couple of bullets there by Wise Shogun here on the tower stairs. The flashbang will fall as well, but here comes Rush on the flank. It's going to catch Wise Shogun off guard, and that's a kill in the bag for Rush. Now a 3v4 is what Georgia Tech are facing, and Jello Shots, having pushed up here in Pillar, has to deal with one player behind the wall. Serban will find the shots on a Kung Fu, but Jello Shots has been taken down in the meantime. Gonna get revived there by Serban, so that's going to be okay. But here comes Rush. The shots delivered. They knew that the Valkyrie would be a problem, but a problem they simply were not ready for nonetheless. Now a 2v3. Serban and Thunderhawk now have to do the work that has been left for them by these attackers, and throwing a flashbang rather than having the gun in hand, that's going to result in Serban taking a bit of damage here. But with under a minute to go, these attackers have time and they have some utility to work with, but it's about how they use it effectively to make this push successful.
It's going to be on drone, push, and cover, utilizing those smoke grenades to lock down lines of sight. The next step for Georgia Tech will be winning the gunfight, looking the wrong way, and it's going to be an SMG-11, bro, finding one. Now it's going to be an impossible state for Thunderhawk. He's been here before in the previous round. There goes more utility, forcing him deeper into J Bunker. He has a drone to get information, but he's not going to elect to do that. He's going to go for his heads-up gunfight, trying to go straight into the pillar. It's ill-advised. He's locked on down. A great showing by defenders once again.
Well, early on, it seems that Oklahoma is here to send a message. They do not belong as that 21st seed. They belong up there with the big boys. They want to make that deep run. And with 2 very strong rounds under their belt, it's looking pretty good for them so far. Obviously, we're not going to get ahead of ourselves. It is defense on Oregon, and the bans definitely are in the favor of that defensive side, I'd say. So we're going to have to see how it continues to play out. But now comes the time that I talk about adaptability. I talk about this every time, especially at the collegiate level, because it is simply so important to find your edge. Find a way to get an edge up on your opponent, and you do that by changing up your strategy round by round in accordance with what your opponent is doing. And that is what separates those good teams from those better teams, from the absolute best teams out there. How can you adapt on the fly? And of course, it is not easy. That's why teams struggle with it sometimes. It requires a very experienced IGL and a team willing to, get behind that IGL, listen to what they're saying, and conduct their setup and their attacks accordingly. Something tough to do, but something that Georgia Tech are going to need to do if they want to continue to get some traction here and try to stop this dominant Oklahoma defense already 2 rounds in and 2 rounds under their belt.
You can see how Oklahoma is planning on holding the meeting room bomb site. They're going to be utilizing buffer rooms on the first floor as well as the second floor. And this is going to force the attackers to take a greater area before they even go for their bomb plan. Now, meeting room is a strong bomb site for the attackers, once they've cleared out that second floor. But it's incredibly difficult to do. It's like executing on dorms times two. Once you clear that second floor, you have to repeat those steps over and over again. You have to be very conscious of the clock. And something that we've been talking about throughout these first two rounds is it's where you put your drones depends on how quickly you're able to go for these executes.
Well, so far, it's an execute that looks like it is a full attic take right now, and one kill will be delivered. Wise Shogun finds the head of Turk, so that is a start. But they still have to deal with Jack Whiskey, who's being pretty persistent here in attic, and is what is left of this vertical hold. We'll talk about it every time you see a tertiary bomb site in play, and that's simply because the entire roof of the kitchen can be destroyed with some soft destruction, and that makes it impossible to hold the site, impossible to prevent a plant on that site, and something that these attackers are going to need to control if they want to go for that kitchen take. And based on the positioning of these attackers, it looks like that is fully the plan today. But Issues is going to open things up for Oklahoma, finding Wise Shogun and kicking things off, or at least balancing things out here. But Squash has something to say about that. Issues will be taken down, and now Oklahoma find themselves on the back foot for the first time.
Wise was the fuser carrier. He has now surrendered it in the bomb site. The attackers are still going to have to clear the second floor and do a Hail Mary drop into meeting room to recover the diffuser. Basically, the defenders have a free day at this point. They can sit back, relax, and wait for the audio cue of the drop. Wise's unbridled aggression has cost his teammates his life, as well as potentially the round. Now, the attackers have plenty of utility on their side to be successful. Those frag grenades in the back pocket of Sledge can work out perfectly, removing the positions of defenders. The frag grenade goes downtown. It will do exactly that. And the attackers now have control of meeting room with two defenders left, both of them being an SMG-11, bro, but it's now just one of them. He can hear the bomb going down. He's going to have to start to swing and leave his hidey holes. He doesn't have a lot of time. His nitro cell is going to go down range, but it's going to be sniped away midair. It's an impossible showing for Rush as he loses life entering Green Hallway.
Well, Georgia Tech, they made their response felt. They found a round, they've got it done, and that will be one round to their name now as we head into round number 4. But that round was all about that methodical approach. They had a very methodical vertical take. They took control of attic. They took control of that kitchen hallway. They took control of tower, and they made their meeting room take known after that point. That is exactly what you need to do when you're attacking this site. Of course, often we will see teams try to get more map control other than just attic before the meeting room take goes through. But regardless, it worked out for Georgia Tech. Oklahoma just did not have an answer when the vertical control was surrendered. And of course, that makes perfect sense. It's a very hard site to hold once you lose that vertical pressure, once you lose any offsite pressure on the side of main lobby. Because if your defenders are holed up in kitchen or security or dining or on that side, it is very hard to get a good retake going over towards meeting.
So we're going to be seeing another similar strategy what we did in round number 1. It's going to be a Twitch drone flying in through the attic window. And hopefully Oklahoma has learned their lesson, and they're going to have Rush put one of his Mozzie pests on that window. That way you can destroy part of that Twitch drone utility. And you can also bury yourself towards the south side of attic on a nice angle looking into that window, because you'll hear the window open, you'll hear the drone being tossed, and you could swing on that drone. Once that drone is destroyed, the entire macro strategy from Georgia Tech is going to fall. And because of that contingency plan, Georgia Tech needs to rotate somebody over to big window ASAP just to shoot it open. You need to have that threat level increase on the west side of the map. You cannot allow Oklahoma to sit pretty.
I think you make a great point about the threat level, because if you imagine yourself as a defender on that site, just a window being opened terrifies you. You know that you can no longer hold a particular angle or a particular position on the bomb site as long as the attackers have made their presence felt from a particular angle. And even if you don't put a player actively on the big window, as long as you open it up, take a few shots through, no defender will have the courage to be running back and forth in dorms in front of that window window and risk their lives just for a reposition if they fear the attacking pressure is mounting. But the attacking pressure will be mounting in round number 4. Attic wall now completely opened, and the Selma charges going down on Closet, and Squash will continue that by finding Turks. The roamer is taken care of, and the C4 from Issues will not find its target. So Squash is low HP, and as is Wise Shogun, the shot from Issues will connect, but Serbin with the response, the immediate trade, and so far the man advantage is maintained for Georgia Tech. And at this point, all they have to do is play the trade game, play off each other, and using that man advantage, it could go in their favor, but oh no for them. Kung Fu has the headshot, the MPX will do its job, and that will be the ace off the board. Jello Shots will take the shot and finally remove Jack Whiskey, so the man advantage is once again maintained. And now with a minute to go, Rush and Kung Fu are the last remaining defenders to stop this push, and with Squash off the board, that is one step towards that goal.
Georgia Tech needs to play together. They are separate, but they can utilize crossfires and angles. Rush is going to overextend his life just slightly, and now it's the defenders for the first time this series at a man disadvantage. Kung Fu has a nitrocell in his back pocket, but he's going to have to deal with the twitch first. He can see the backpack through the wall, but he won't be able to land the kill, and as he finds himself in a post plant, time is no longer on his side. Lining up the shot, unable to even pull the trigger as he misses. A huge oversight for the defenders, and Georgia Tech finds victory in their first round. It took them a few rounds, but nonetheless, Georgia Tech is here to play.
Well, it seems that Georgia Tech, they've got their feet under them and they are storming ahead with ease. That was another good attacking round. Of course, it was by no means a blowout, but they got the attacking pressure going. They methodically took map control, methodically eliminated those defenders, and they took that site in a textbook fashion. You established your game's crossfire. You open the closet wall. You open attic and take attic control. You put a player in trophy, and at that point, game's room is yours. Hold some long angles, get the diffuser down, and good round to all. You will secure it if you are an attacker. So we're sitting now at 2-2, heading over into what looks like it's going to be another kids and dorms defense. And when you see a repeat site like this, you have to wonder a couple of things. Is there going to be a big change on the defensive side, or are they simply going to be hoping that things go a bit differently, or do they simply want to avoid the other site, the secondary bomb site, which is basement in this case, because something about that site doesn't sit right with them, Chief?
So, JZ, hear me out. The way the Twitch drone is being sent into North Attic is through the top hatch the defenders are keeping open. So, how do you stop it? Simple. You just reinforce it. And the attackers will have to change their entire strategy. Then they'll have to go for that west window. But every time Oklahoma opens that hatch, they are playing perfectly into the macro strategy of Georgia Tech. So that's on kind of the defense to fill out, hey, we want to hold North Attic, but we keep losing it. How do we make this a stronger position? Well, we know Twitch is working her way on through. How is she doing that? It's through the hatch. If we destroy that hatch, or if we close the hatch off, they will no longer have access to it, and it'll change up and throw bananas everywhere into the attack.
Well, it seems that that particular adaptation you mentioned, Chief, has not been made, but it seems that Russian Turks are hoping to change things in their favor by playing even more aggressive on this roam. We saw Turks get spotted by a drone and smartly rotating away, and now we're seeing Rush take a couple of fights here. But here comes Squash, here comes Jello Shots, and here comes a lot of attacking pressure, very committed to this roam clear. If Rush plays this well and plays this passively enough from this point forward, I would consider it a very well done on the roam. But it appears that Rush will not be taking that advice. Rush is going to be heading back towards Split in meeting room here and back towards a potential challenge on these attackers. But Squash is going to reveal that position, or at least back off of that meeting hall hold for the time being, and now going to be pressuring up Armory stairs.
The attackers have enough to be successful, at least on the east side of the map, but we are highlighting in previous rounds, big window is so important, and the attackers are going to do a linear execute, and that just doesn't have enough crossfires. Now, if members of Oklahoma are overextending and just wide swinging every possible door frame just like Turks was, it's going to be open season. and Georgia Tech's going to find themselves in a better position because of that. But they still haven't dealt with the media group pressure. There is Russ still being a pain, but he's going to try to leave Split to his undoing as he's gunned down. He has wasted plenty of time, which is phenomenal, but is it enough? Because the attackers still have 60 seconds and a good amount of drones to work their way through.
Well, they've got the pressure mounting from Closet, but they haven't quite got the attic pressure mounting just yet. And Issues is fine to hang out in here, and so is Jack Whiskey. They can be the thorn in the side of this attack. And with 40 seconds left, just getting open this attic, at this point, Wise, Shogun, and Serban are going to have to be very aggressive and efficient with this take. But they have to deal with a Kaid who's lurking behind this box. They know he's here. They're flashing through, and Issues is full white. He's terrified now, but he's going to get one. That's going to be the Twitch drop down. There's one more player lurking around the corner, but Wise Shogun has smartly backed off and actually repositioned to get an angle on the Kaid. Swinging on in, the pre-fire lands, a double kill search for, and it will connect. And only one player remaining, but Georgia Tech will send it right away. They will take the round number 5, firmly in their grasp after a brilliant, efficient take in the closing seconds.
Well, welcome to not Utility Consumption Simulator. Back in the day in Utility Consumption Simulator, your flashbangs were designed to destroy ADSs and destroy Wamai pancakes. But here in the new meta that's currently evolving, you can actually use your flashbangs to flash people. It sounds like a crazy concept, but we had that for 6 months where your flashbangs never basically were used off soft targets. But I guess it's a new day, it's a new meta, and it's a new year. So we're going to start to see that strategy come back. And it's incredibly refreshing to do so. And I have to be complimentary of Georgia Tech. They pushed that bomb site perfectly. They were on other sides of the map, but once the call said execute, you can see it happening frame by frame. The vault and through attic window and the push from South Games, it was as textbook as it comes. Phenomenal read by the Georgia Tech IGL.
Well, now Oklahoma are the ones who have to make the adaptation that Georgia Tech seem to have made quite well. They've taken 3 rounds in a row after 2 rounds were delivered decisively by Oklahoma, including 1 flawless round. And now that Georgia Tech has made that change, Oklahoma are now on the back foot, and now they need to change up something. And that change, whether it's maybe not having as extended roam and losing those players early on, or simply repositioning on the site, you have to wonder exactly what they can do here to stall out this attack that is looking so strong right now. I'd argue that the better strategy here would be to remove that defensive pressure from like that aggressive roam pressure and maybe save those roamers, those strong guns of Turks and Rush, to the on-site pressure to delay that final second push, because Georgia Tech now are fully aware that a extended roam is something they're going to have to deal with round after round. So they are going to have to use time, or theoretically would have to use some time droning this out regardless. And so you can still burn that time despite not actually putting those bodies on that top floor.
Georgia Tech is electing to do a different style of execute. Instead of doing a flash jump and destroy it with an explosive, they just sent the Twitch drones down range, and it worked out perfectly. But it's all going to crumble straight through their fingertips as a Nitro Cell goes down range. Squash is able to answer it back, but it's all Georgia Tech in the kill feed. It seems like Oklahoma wasn't prepared for that aggression, and now they're going to have to suffer the consequences and the wrath of Georgia Tech. Jack Whiskey is not prepared for somebody over in the J bunker. It is mano a mano 2 SMG-11 bros trying to do damage to each other.
Well, the standoff continues, but here comes Squash, creeping slowly around, wary that there could be a Freezer player opting to swing at any time, and he'd be right. There is one player in Freezer, that is Rush, but Rush is smartly enough not going to challenge on that angle right now. But Jello Shots and Thunderhawk have now worked their way up into pillars and are contesting this heavily, as is Jack Whiskey now popping a couple of those toxic babes to make his presence felt and to make it harder for Squash to make his felt. But Jello Shots is keenly aware of the Freezer player and is looking down range, but it's the pre-fire from Rush that will connect, and now it's a 3v3, all things even. Now with this push, inevitable to come through now.
Unfortunate Georgia Tech losing the peeker's advantage. It's difficult to hold that angle. Sure, you have a pixel that you can see, but bullets going around a corner, curving just seems to be the optimal macro strategy in Rainbow Six Siege. Latency will always be a problem unless you're in land. But Let's dive back into round 6. The attackers are in a good position to work their way to being success, but there is a Valkyrie camera over the B bomb site. The Nitro Cell goes down range and destroys the camera. It's a huge blunder by Oklahoma, and Thunderhawk is almost done with the bomb plan. He's gonna die to the toxic smoke, but it won't even matter as there's one lone defender alive. He's gonna have to leave his hidey hole, and he won't even be successful on that. Georgia Tech wins another round. 4-2 splits are incredibly common, but not for the attacking team.
The 4-2 split in their hands. An impressive turnaround. I am extremely impressed in what we just saw from Georgia Tech. Losing 2 rounds early on in this important match. It's do or die, of course, for both of these teams in the playoffs. Losing those first 2 rounds, that is a big deal, and it gets in your head early. But Georgia Tech, they said, it doesn't matter. We are stronger than that. And they stormed ahead to 4 rounds on attack. On a map like Oregon, that is by no means a common occurrence. It is, of course, Georgia Tech's map pick, so you'd expect them to be stronger here. But 4 rounds on attack certainly sends a message, and one that Oklahoma are going to have to create a response of their own as they now transition to an attacking half of their own. Attacking kids and dorms will be the first responsibility they have to undertake.
So far through the series, Georgia Tech has had some great levels of push. They are basically like a roller coaster through their attack, or they have moments of aggression, followed by slow moments that's climbing up the hill, then they drop back down in high levels of aggression. If they're able to put that on defense, they can be a force to be reckoned with on a roam, where you'll have a defender just flying out of a door frame and then retreating back to the bomb site, wasting more time. We tend to call that a stage style of roam, or you snipe away a drone, you retreat, or you get aggressive and you work your way back to the bomb site. But looking at the defensive positioning right now, it doesn't seem like they're going to be going for a true strategy that is a staged roam. Instead, they're going to be holding all the buffer rooms upstairs and just try to waste as much time as possible.
Well, with only about 30 seconds burned, the time waste is going to still have to be a factor here, as Issues and the rest of the team are just obtaining as much information as they can about this inevitable push. Squash, positioned here on Armory Stairs, is actually going to opt to hold this Armory side and possibly even hold Armory itself for a duration of time. And now Turks, the player to pressure from below, opting to remove any hard breach denial in the form of a mute jammer, using that impact grenade. That will be accomplished, but the ace, still having to rotate upstairs, will take a moment to get that unopened. And the mute may even actually be able to get some shots below, but Jello's shots is refusing, or Turks rather, because we have switched sides. Turks is refusing to let off this angle, and the C4 will not do much to prevent the Selmas from detonating here. But with 1:45 now remaining, very little progress has been made other than that closet wall. And Rush, still on this roam clear, is going to have to get some pressure going, at least from possibly, the attic side with the teammates of Jack Whiskey and Kung Fu, or something maybe on the White Stairs approach, because simply a roam clear is not going to be enough.
And here's the more traditional way of holding attic. You put your ADSs, your My Pancakes, and you say, good luck, attackers. Have fun sending all of your utility towards me. It's not going to work. You're going to have to change up your execute. And we keep saying big window is the play. The attackers in this series have been petrified by that window. It's just a way of putting extra pressure on the defense. You don't have to actively push there, but if you don't open it up, the defenders know that isn't an avenue you have. But nonetheless, the attackers are going to start to skip steps, getting far too aggressive. Turk's going to work his way on through to master bedroom, but he's going to die in that endeavor. He's going to attempt to call for extra help from Rush, pushing in through Trophy. That help will actually come from his teammate of Kung Fu, who has now locked down the crossfires on the east side of the map.
Well, now Rush, still stuck at this trophy door, gonna look away at the wrong time, throwing a drone. Oh no, an absolute blunder, and then a team kill. It is all falling apart for Oklahoma. It's all going downhill, and with Kung Fu now taken away from the down but not out stage, it is Issues in a hopeless 1v4, finding some shots onto Jello over here on the Valkyrie. That will connect, but here comes the triple swing. The defenders will converge, and they will take round number 7, and a round characterized by Oklahoma struggling to get their feet under them, struggling to do much of anything to get the pressure mounting onto that site, uncharacteristic of what we've seen from Oklahoma so far.
That was a spicy way to go on an attack. And again, there was just a lack of overall communication and coordination. But I also want to go back to that nitro cell that Mute sent out. It destroyed half of the Selma charges, but not the other half. It like that baffles me how shrapnel propagation sometimes works. So they threw two Selma charges, one towards the east side of the map and one towards the west side. The one on the east was destroyed by the explosion, but the one on the west wasn't. Those are just one of those moments where you just scratch your head and say, Ubisoft, what on earth happened there? But again, that same quote can go towards the attackers. They need to communicate amongst themselves much better. You can see they have a good understanding of how to break down power positions and particularly open up the wall. Sophia did a great job of pushing it through Classroom, helping her team open up games. But after that, the communication just broke down. You could tell that they dry run some of their attacks, but they need to dry run the executes, the most important part of the attack.
Well, you highlighted the execute, Chief, and if you think back just 2 rounds ago to the execute that Georgia Tech mustered on this basement site, it was clean in the way that at the same time, all 3 attackers swung their angles and delivered the kills. They pinched onto the site, not allowing those Oklahoma defenders to breathe at all. And on the second half now, we're seeing how Oklahoma is missing those steps, is not quite as coordinated as we saw from Georgia Tech on their attacking half. So already Georgia Tech are looking strong and they're looking a bit more coordinated than Oklahoma have, at least on their attack. So things aren't looking too great for the prospects of Oklahoma in map number 1, but this is a team that took Oklahoma State, the favored champs, or the favored to win at least in this winter season, this open division. They took them to 3 maps, so they know what it takes to grind it out, not only within a map but in an entire series. So losing this one here would not be the end of Oklahoma, and even losing another round, I would not even bother to count them out because they are a dedicated team and one that knows how to grind it back from even the most severe deficits.
I like how the defense of Georgia Tech is currently running 2 deployable shields. This is going to allow them a lot of fluidity and the ability to actively challenge the attackers as they start to take control, whether or not it's going to be a North Stairs execute or a Freezer Stairs execute. And you can also pick up those deployable shields and put them in the heat of the gunfight in the position where the attackers are pushing from. That can be high risk, but again, your whole goal is to waste as much time as possible, but also be safe when you do so. Now, with the defense being droned out over on the Freezer side, those deployable shields are going to have to either make the rotation on now or they'll never have the position they want.
Well, why Shogun here holding this long angle towards Freezer? The first shots will not connect, and then Squash is going to try to swing the angle as well, but nobody finding the fatal blows quite yet. It's going to be Turks to start things off, and we'll find Wise Shogun there tucked away in the closet. So a good start now for Oklahoma, but it's all about how they take that start, they take their man advantage, and they work with it. And Serban is going to make that even harder finding one. The trade exists, though, and Turks will find one. So it's 4 versus 3 now overall, and still possible for both of these teams to pull this out. But Oklahoma has the advantage now, and it's all about how you use that advantage properly. You double swing angles, you use the copious amount of utility that you clearly still have in your possession to get this site pressure going.
Squash is in a unique micro position over by the bomb chassis. If he is not droned out, he's going to be a punisher, but he's going to now be punished. It's Turks on the quad. He's going to have to go for the ace, help his teammates out, but he's now been gunned down. It's Jello Shot's turn to find the impactful kills, to be impressive. He won't be able to do so as he sprints challenges away into his own demise. It was looking great for the Ella player, but a little bit too much W shift action for him.
You're not quite able to deliver that clutch in that 1v4 situation, and we mentioned how important it would be to use that man advantage properly, and Oklahoma did exactly that. Despite losing a couple of players to some good trades back and forth, they found their footing in that round. They found the speed that they needed to group up on that site and converge all at once. They got the plant down efficiently, forcing the defenders to retake that site or start to get out of their hidey holes, and well, we see how that ended up. So we're sitting at 5-3 now. That was the first attacking round that Oklahoma was able to find. And heading into round number 9, if you're an Oklahoma fan, you'd hope that they continue some of that similar success here. And Basement is the site we're going to see once again. So we're not going to head to a tertiary bomb site. We are going to repeat the same defense and the same attack. So, of course, you'd expect Georgia Tech to have something up their sleeves to change things around here to maybe get that round swinging in their favor.
It's going to start with conserving utility. We saw Malusi playing over in Freezer. She sent her Nitro Cell out way too early. She saw her cameras destroyed. She went for a wide swing and then retreated. But during her retreat, she sent a Nitro Cell downrange. Imagine if she waited about 20 additional seconds to send that Nitro Cell, because it was a tag team push from Turks. Now, Turks' teammates, I believe it was the Habana, was gunned down, but Turks was still alive. If he had a Nitro Cell, he being the Malusi, still had the Nitro Cell, he would have sent it down range. He would have got a double kill in the round. Turks would not have had the quad kill, and things would have gone completely different. So when you're a defender, you have to remember the opportunity cost of your utility. If you utilize it too soon, it might come to hurt you down the road.
Well, so far, nobody finding that hurt early on, only 30 seconds in, and everyone is happily sitting at 100 HP. The drones are going out, and the methodical roam clear is the Oklahoma priority. Seems that they're not going to worry about anybody on that top floor, and with the first floor generally cleared now, they'll simply be focused onto the bomb site. But little do they know, there is Squash hanging out in small tower, the Jaeger, the 416 wielder, waiting to make his mark known a little bit later in this round. And now going to start to creep up in Showers Hall, and something that Turks and Kung Fu are going to have to be wary of, or that could be quite dangerous for their lives. But Squash is fine to just hang out. He will be lurking around, and something to keep an eye on a bit later. But right now it's Turks who's going to push it down Freezer stairs, and once again try to emulate some of that similar Freezer success that they found in round number 8.
Currently, there isn't a flank drone positioned over in Zulu, so Squash is in a perfect position to get that flank. He's going to have to start to expedite that to save his teammate, who's currently being pressured from Freezer. Here comes the flank, able to find one, but the ill-advised sprint challenge, a huge blunder. Unbind your shift key, please. That's not the way to go, and bad positioning by his teammate, as Turks is just better in every one of these scenarios over by the Freezer side. Georgia is just getting a little bit too antsy, and it's costing them their players' lives.
Well, now Turks will be down but not out, and actually does have the cover to use the withstand ability and to get back in this fight. And now the pressure sweeping over around this J bunker is extending, but so is Jello Shots extending all the way into the Freezer and going to remove the persistent Zofia from play. With that rotate reinforced, Rush is going to have to make a different attack onto Pillar here and force now into a 3v3 situation. Still with ample time to work with, but the time that is slowly dwindling away. But Rush and Kung Fu will now be supporting each other as Rush is going for the sneaky supply room push. And here comes a Kaid. The Shift W play will not be successful. Jello Shots will, though, as Kung Fu's the next to find their graves. And now it's a 2v2. With 20 seconds to go, the execute needs to happen, but the Toxic Babes are doing what they do best. Delay the push in from E-Box, and Rush is now desperately searching for some kills. The pre-fire will not connect, and here comes Rush, though that one will, and now it's only a 1v2. It's up to Jello Shots. He's found some kills in this round, but he's going to have to find the clutch. And with Issues going for the plant, Rush with the coverage. Issues has to do it, but he will get the planter 1 second too late, but the triple kill. If he finds the quad, he'll win the round, but the prone angle from Rush is too much, and round number 9 goes to Oklahoma in an interesting fashion that really could have shaken out either way in those closing moments, Chief.
Georgia Tech is struggling on this bomb site. They're struggling to hold their position because their players are just too aggressive. They want to get kills. You can tell they're trying to get these flashy plays, and they look great for a highlight reel, but you're not here for a highlight reel. You want to win CR6, and the only way to do that is win the current round you're playing, which will culminate into the series win and eventually hopefully deliver you to the grand finals. But we were jokingly saying unbind your shift keys, but throughout that round, 3 members of Georgia Tech died because they were sprinting into a gunfight. That is brutally unacceptable, and they need to address that now. That is a mistake that you cannot be making. Like, I get Kaid wanted to get kills. He wanted to retake control of buff rooms, but you have to jiggle peek. You have to take that corner as it's an active threat, particularly with 20 seconds left on the round. Sure, he can be out in a completely different position, but if you don't take that corner as a threat, he could be there. And sadly, that was one of the scenarios where he actually was there.
Yeah, and with 20 seconds left, you have to assume the attackers are bearing down from all angles. And if you don't need to assume that, I mean, have information at your fingertips. Have a Valk cam because Valk is in play. Have a call out from your teammate to let you know that the pillars push is very much present. That is actually a player hiding out in E-Box. You have to be aware of that before you make some sort of miracle Hail Mary play than the Kaid tried to do. Because if you're going to shift challenge into that engagement, or even if you jiggle peek that, you're still taking an aggressive fight that you have no business taking with 20 seconds left. At that point, all you need to do is play time and wait for Oklahoma to walk into your open and loving arms. And that is not what happened for Georgia Tech. Their over-aggression cost them round number 9. And so they're looking to change things up. They're going to start that off by heading back upstairs to kids and dorms, but they're also going to have to change up that play style a little bit. They're going to have to change up exactly what fights they're choosing to take here and exactly what engagements they want to force themselves into.
Georgia Tech is playing this map in predictable fashion. They're doing traditional murder holes on that second floor, and they're actively playing. You can that the attackers understood that those poles would be there, and they sent bullets sky high, nearly missing members of Georgia Tech, and squashes on this huge, grandiose roam downstairs. Oklahoma knows that there's somebody lurking, and they've sent their drones down. They're going to confirm his location. But some of those drones have been sniped away. So it's going to be on issues to send more drones down range to actively confirm that. But once he's located over in closet, but issues makes a huge mistake. He doesn't actively drone closet. And members of Oklahoma are going to leave the basement pressure. Squash is going to be laughing as he's now a billionaire on his 3,000 IQ play.
Well, this is terrifying for Oklahoma, and now everyone is sitting at home just clenching it up because they got no idea what is about to come through. Last time, Squash found one, but should have found at least 2 kills on that flank. And this time, I assume Squash is not going to be shift Wing into that challenge. And Jack Whiskey is completely unaware of the sneaky Jaeger coming up the attic stairs. Jack Whiskey is actually now aware of it, and the pre-fire, the G8 connects. The G8 goes burr, as does Rush. And Jello Shots is cut down. A 3v5 now as Georgia Tech have seemingly lost their perfect round of defensive performances. Now they are struggling to get the traction in each round, hoping for some God plays, some 100 IQ plays, but it's just not happening for them right now. It's all crumbling every single second.
Rounds are getting spicier and spicier by the minute. Rush is going to go for the reload, almost costing him his life. He was on a sliver of HP, but the SMG-11 was unable to be controlled. And now everything is crumbling for Georgia Tech. It slipped through their fingertips. The lone SMG-11 bro against the entire world of Oklahoma. He has utility in his back pocket. 3 of his toxic babes. One of them is going to go towards the south attic, but it's not going to be enough to do anything. And it's another sprint challenge in the round for Georgia Tech. Kung Fu gets the free kill, and it's been the reverse sweep at map 1 as the attackers of Oklahoma are back in this series. They're leading it, and they're on match point.
Well, usually when a caster makes a prediction, Chief, you consider it a little bit of a curse. You're probably going to jinx things, but we were sitting at 5-2 when I said, don't you dare count Oklahoma out. They know how to grind it back from even the biggest deficits. And attacking on Oregon, down 3 rounds, it looking so bad every chance you get. And all of a sudden, they brought it back. That's 3 rounds in a row under their belt. And they are looking to continue that and continue that success. And now we're sitting at 5-5, what's shaping up to be a stellar map 1 and a stellar match as we get into this round 11. But we're kicking things off in style. The playoffs are shaping up to be, well, as heated as we could ever expect.
And I just want to back up. The Chief Ball of Chaos got a little bit too hectic. We aren't yet on match point, but we will be on match point at the end of this round. So one of these 2 rosters will find themselves on that coveted match point. And that's the problem when the map goes the distance. When you find yourself in round 11, it is imperative that you do not lose a penultimate round. That's going to put a lot of pressure on the team that does take that L in round 11. They're going to have to identify what went wrong and change up their strategy, particularly if you're on defense, because that is saying that, look, this bomb site isn't working out for me. I either learn my lessons from that round or I go to a completely different bomb site. The fact that Georgia Tech has been stuck on the primary and secondary bomb sites is a little bit concerning. That shows that the rotation of bomb sites isn't as large as it should be.
I think that is a fair point, and one that we're going to have to continue to see play out here. We're going to have to see Georgia Tech make that change, find the right balance of the offsite pressure and the onsite pressure, when to swing, when to play an active roam versus a very passive and restrained roam, and something that we're not seeing the balance at least be struck for Georgia Tech in these back-to-back Oklahoma round wins that actually haven't looked all that close, that have looked like Georgia Tech, it's slipping away from their fingertips, like you said, Chief. It's not quite clicking anymore. Maybe that early comeback that those first two rounds that Oklahoma took and then Georgia Tech storming ahead, maybe that comeback fatigued them a little bit. Maybe they're struggling to continue the coordination. And as this is, of course, their map pick of Oregon, they have the strats. They have the ability. They know what it takes to bring this back, but we're going to have to see some conscious efforts to change things up in the way that they are playing the map, in the micro positioning of each defender. Those are the changes we're going to have to see.
And also, something that's a little bit scaring me right now is the fact that too many players in this lobby have very low KDs and they're relying on their primary and secondary entry fraggers to win their gunfights and take map control. Now, that is the job of an entry fragger, is to actually take map control, not necessarily get the opening kill, but they kind of go hand in hand. If you want map control, well, the defenders are going to resist you, which means you have to kill the defenders. But what's even more important, as a member of Oklahoma has departed the lobby, he is having some type of technical issue, and that's going to put Oklahoma on the back foot and probably the most important round of the first map.
I do agree with your point, Chief. It is absolutely the most important round of this first map. It's all going to change here because with the match point on the horizon, you're forcing the other team to play for their lives at that point. That is a big power position to be in. Just like the power position that this Wamai is holding. That is Serbin behind a deployable shield and Attic refusing to be forced out. And with ADSs to support it and with Jello shots taking down Rush off camera, we're seeing this position come into work perfectly. Serbin is happy to contest this over and over again, but here comes the swing, the pre-fire from Kung Fu, and despite it looking like Kung Fu wasn't looking at the Wamai, the kill was found, and Wise Shogun also taken down as well. And here comes Thunderhawk, though, trying to get a little retake in Dorms, and Turks will be felled as well. So only 2 Oklahoma attackers remain, having to find 3 defenders, and with only 20 seconds to do it, it's not looking too good.
What's more important is the diffuser is surrendered over by South Games. They're just gonna have to win their gunfights, pulling their way through the bomb sites. Kung Fu is gonna be brilliant in that. And now the round is completely shifted. Oklahoma just walks into the bomb site. They win their gunfights. It was a 3-2, but it doesn't matter when your mechanical skill is just there. A brilliant showing of that.
Well, a brilliant showing indeed, and one that really did not need to happen for Georgia Tech there. The round was theirs. They had the man advantage the entire time. The disconnect, of course, it helped them, but the micro positioning, we talked about it just before the round, Chief. It seems that our predictions are pretty spot on so far, but that micro positioning is tough to get right. And if you don't get it right, if you mess it up just like Georgia Tech did there, it can mean a round, and it can mean one of the most important rounds in this map has now fallen in the hands of Oklahoma, and on Georgia Tech's map pick, Oklahoma are now staring down match point.
And I want to build upon that a little bit more. Micro positioning is great, but you can kind of get around it if you're playing together. So imagine if it's a simultaneously being swung by all 3 members of the defense challenging North Attic because they knew or South Attic because they knew exactly where they were. If you started to put lead down range, well, you're going to get a kill or do a lot of damage because they're going to be pushing through South Attic door as well as through the West main breach that you opened up back in your prep phase. You have to read into that. You know that it's going to be the push. You know there's so little time left. but the defense just wasn't communicating amongst themselves. They weren't listening to audio cues, and once that push happened, they were still too passive and they were caught completely off guard. You need to have that as a light switch. As soon as you hear the attackers pushing on through, guns go ablaze, because if you don't, rounds get lost like that.
Well, that they do. And heading into this, what could be the ultimate round of the map, or at least it is the ultimate round of regulation, we're going to have to see exactly what both of these teams are going to put forward. What best foot forward they are going to have to do, because, well, at least for Georgia Tech, that is what is required of them here. The best foot forward is needed if they want to win this round to force overtime here. We saw that Georgia Tech can do it. They put a beautiful display of aggression and dominance, winning 5 rounds in a row. It doesn't take simply just luck to make that happen. You're outplaying your opponents if you're winning 5 rounds in a row. You are simply better in those rounds if you are winning 5 rounds in a row. But the Georgia Tech that we saw in the first half of Oregon is not the Georgia Tech that we are seeing now. Something has gone wrong. Whether somebody's monitor has been clicked off or somebody's comms are clicked off, something big has changed, because this is not the clean style of play and calculated aggression that we have grown used to seeing. It is more aggression that has no place in a particular moment. It is less calculated and is more monkey. It is less perfect decision making and more antics that we're seeing here. And so to clean this up, they're going to need to clean this up if they want to bring this round back into their favor, to swing things around, and maybe, just maybe, that 1-minute pause that we just had to get a player back in the lobby was enough time for Georgia Tech to regroup.
I want to go back to your no monitor challenge. That's absolutely brilliant. And our director and producer did the one chip challenge, so it can't be any more difficult, right? But the attackers have been allowed to take some part of the map control, and you can see Georgia Tech is playing this very passively. They've learned that their aggression has been costing them their lives, but they haven't understood why their aggression is costing their lives. They're putting themselves in very bad positions. We keep highlighting micro positioning because that's what exactly is slipping away. But if you put all of your eggs in one basket and throw all the defenders down into a very small area, they're just going to be like shooting fish in the barrel. The attackers are going to put a 360 crossfire around them, and then they just need to hold mouse 1 and 2.
Well, Rush here is going to try to get that drone going, and Jack Whiskey is persisting on the roam clear because they are terrified of a possible roamer. But all 5 defenders are happily squirreling around on the bomb site, waiting for this push to come through. And Turks, the freezer push that we've known to come and see every round, is going to be denied this time. Squash, on a close angle there in freezer, will find a kill. And now, despite being dropped to 25 HP, Squash is eager for more, and Kung Fu and another player there pushing down in this freezer are looking to force this player out. And now there's 2 players. There's 2 players to support, and Squash will swing and find one. And the pre-fire around the corner will finally get Squash into his early grave. But Squash has done a tremendous amount of damage in this round, and Kung Fu is looking to answer back. But Wise Shogun is playing this one wisely and is not going to challenge that one again. So with 40 seconds left, Oklahoma, they're floundering. They're rotating. They're trying to find another approach to this site, but it may be too little too late.
Look at this elevated position. He spots the head, unable to control the one-tap recoil. Kung Fu could have brought his team back in this round, but a quick oopsie might have costed everything in this round, as it's a 4-2 with 20 seconds left. Habanab X Kyra's going on the wall, and it just might be slipping away. Overtime is almost certain. The attackers need to push together. They need to work together. That push is going to come through. Trades back and forth, but it's not going to be enough as trades for issues. It's going to be the sacrifice for him. Into overtime, 3 rounds to round out this first map.
Well, the full turtle strategy worked. I wouldn't say that Georgia Tech did anything out of the ordinary to win that round, but Oklahoma just did not seem to get their feet under them whatsoever. That was one of their worst attack performances that we've seen from them so far, echoing that first attacking round where they just had no progress whatsoever and they got shut down. at every single turn. And so now in overtime, they are going to be on the attacking half, the half that, while it looked like they were going to struggle, they actually managed to get 4 rounds. So while I think that you may consider, if you're looking at our attacker side in Oregon, we've got in front of us this evening, you may consider Oklahoma to have the advantage here. I don't know about that. I think Georgia Tech on the defense, they have seen what works, and that is playing it a bit more on site, a bit closer to the chest, and a bit more passively at least. I mean, we saw some aggression there from Squash, but more calculated, a bit more targeted aggression at the right moments, the adjustment that Georgia Tech needed to make.
What I don't understand is both these rosters are trying to actively prone over by wash, which is in freezers. And the problem with that is your right leg is completely exposed out into the world. The attackers see it, and you as a defender are never going to see the attackers. They're going to shoot you in your toe, you're going to die, and you're going to ask, how on earth did I die? You need to control your level of aggression. When you're ones, phenomenal, but make sure you're doing it in a competent manner, because if you're just hiding behind a wash, it's just not going to help you. But that was a great showing by Georgia Tech. They're going to have to replicate it because this map is going back and forth between the attackers winning more rounds and the defenders winning more rounds. But that might just be the new meta for Oregon.
It very well could be. Of course, in Neon Dawn, we're seeing the attackers find more success than they used to simply because of the changes that have been made to both Wamai, to Habana, to Jaeger. We're seeing a lot of things changed around with this patch, and honestly, I think these things are for the better. Having some more attacking success, keeping it a bit more balanced is always a good thing. And having this round now starting to unfold with a minute burn, having this one go in their favor is not what's happening for Georgia Tech. We're having Oklahoma start things off strong with Kung Fu opening things up onto Squash. That time, Squash wanted it a bit too much. A bit of over-aggression will find his early grave, and that is exactly what we talked about and how Georgia Tech could not do that. They need to be a bit more calculated with it, and at least in round number 13, that's not what we see here. Serban going to try to find at least some response to the Squash death by peeking out behind the lockers in Freezer, but it will not find its fruit. And now a nade rolls on by, but it will be cut down, and it will not be able to catch Serban.
We definitely need to see Zofia do a full stun lock there, sending both of her grenades down range, followed it up with an actual fragmentation grenade. Now, Serban has lost a lot of HP in this position, but he is still alive and active. And as I say that, he is now fallen into the 6-foot grave, and it's on his teammate Thunderhawks and Jello Shots to save this round. Thunderhawks is going to extend a little bit too much. He's going to go for the swing with an SMG-11, unable to control the recoil, and Jello Shots, his fellow in crime, is going to have to save the day, lining 2 kills up relatively quickly, but forced to go to the pistol with sub 60 seconds on the clock.
Well, now Oklahoma, they've got an overwhelming advantage here. Kung Fu's going to make sure to pad the KD, finish off that kill, and now Jack Whiskey will go for the defuse. Getting this round would be big, and by getting the shots with the L85, Kung Fu will do exactly that. Oklahoma will take the round, an attacking round that they needed to get under their belt, and one that they did with relative ease. So now sitting at 7-6, it is now match point once again for Oklahoma. They are well on their way to taking Georgia Tech's own map pick off their hands, but the sides are switching around. The side that Georgia Tech found the most success on, we saw very clean attacks from them, and the aggression that they're showcasing on defense that's not working, that aggression did work on their attacking half. They didn't wait for the 20-second meta to come into play. They didn't wait for the last second push. They pushed into sight when they saw an opening. And so for Oklahoma to win the map here and to force this, or at least prevent this from going to round 15, they're going to need to do their best to not provide even the slightest opening to a team like Georgia Tech, who is happy to seize every little opportunity that you give them.
Now, going down to the basement is a strong bomb site, but if you're a defender, you want to trip up the attackers as much as possible. And this is a perfect time to bring out the tertiary bomb site and try to hold meeting room. And remember, Georgia Tech has not been on an attack for 6 rounds. And if you can trip them up by bringing out a bomb site that you're just not prepared for, it can work out perfectly, especially if they're just going for a strategy where they click heads and swing corners. You want to fight aggression with large amounts of strategy. But we don't have control of that, and Oklahoma will be going downstairs. They're going to be relying on not a J bunker extension, but instead of their utility being placed on the wall. Those bandit batteries will never be shot until the last few seconds of the round when the attackers have control of the freezer.
Well, on this basement defense, we're going to have to see Oklahoma play this, I think, a little bit more on-site pressure than any extension of any kind. Last time we saw Oklahoma on defense was in that first split before the side switch, and when we saw Rush and Turks attempt to have some Hail Mary roam plays to save the day, they only made it even worse for Oklahoma. They lost the rounds even more handily than they did before. And so we're going to have to see a bit more play closer to the site itself. And at least Turks will be doing exactly that, as will Kung Fu, and as will the majority of the remaining defenders. But Georgia Tech are wasting no time. They are pressuring into Pillar immediately with J Bunker firmly in their grasp because of no J Bunker extension. They are looking to get Pillar control ASAP. And Squash has now crouch walked up into that position and has now seemingly taken control of this Pillar's area. But Kung Fu may be tempting to take that back, but that is going to be easier said than done.
That's the Goyo ban really hurting the defenders because they can't hold Pixel appropriately until they start to find headshots. There you go. If you can't actually hold it, you may as well just swing for the fences and hit your home run. The bandit batteries have been removed off the E-box wall because the north side of E-box wasn't reinforced. So the stronghold the defenders are trying to set up isn't working out, but it doesn't matter because they're just better mechanically. Swing for the fences and eventually you'll hit your grand slam, and it's now just two members of Georgia Tech alive and active. They're the flex and soft support, not your best gunners, but they're going to have to evolve into the best gunners on, and it's gone all away.
Oklahoma, they took round 14 and they will take map 1. A brilliant, a very competitive map from both of these teams, but the way it shook out in the end, it is Oklahoma to take away Georgia Tech's map pick, and they are starting things off in style, just the way they wanted to kick off the night. But Chief, I think the teams, they're setting a dangerous precedent here with how they find their success. I mean, we saw Oklahoma struggle in the mid game, I think simply because they weren't playing together and their roamers, their star players per se, were playing a very individual play and not playing close to the team. And even though the round started to swing in the favor of Oklahoma, I'd argue that maybe simply those big fraggers, they just got warmed up. They fell into their element and they found those frags. The coordination as a team wasn't as fully there as I would have liked to see. Of course, it did improve, but I think there is still some potential there for Oklahoma to get a bit more coordinated. Same for Georgia Tech. When their star players popped off, they won rounds cleanly. But when the coordination lacked and the individual play shined, or at least attempted to shine above all else, things didn't go so well.
And I think the break we had in round 11 really helped Georgia Tech, but it wasn't quite enough to swing the entire tide of map number 1. And speaking of a break, well, we're going to allow the players to do exactly that. So please, ladies and gentlemen, don't go anywhere. We'll be back in about 5 minutes.
Ain't no love like a real love, but it goes so fast. All tied up like a captive. I want you. Used to pay my mind like standing on rainbows, playing it cool. I haven't felt this in ages, and I know my patience. So won't you please stay a bit longer? You're making me stronger, making me stronger. Stay a bit longer. You're making me stronger, making me Ain't no luck finding real love. Gotta know where to look. Time moves fast, and I've grown up. Yeah, I want to. Used to pay my mind like standing on rainbows, playing it cool. I haven't felt this in ages, and I know my patience. So won't you please stay a bit longer? You're making me stronger, making me stronger.
Ladies and gentlemen, CR6 is back here in the postseason, and we've had a phenomenal matchup so far, Georgia Tech versus Oklahoma. But map number 1 did not go Georgia Tech's way. They ended up losing Oregon 6-8. And will they be able to now get the better of Oklahoma as we dive over into Cafe? My partner in crime, once again, is Mr. JZ himself. Hello, my friend.
Hey, Chief. It is good to be back with you here after that break. And it was a great map one. Honestly, it was impressive from both of these teams and was very competitive the entire time. We rarely get the pleasure of seeing an attacker sided Oregon. So seeing that was quite something else. But that was, of course, Georgia Tech's map pick. They lost their own map pick. And we talk about the T3 special, being the 3 maps that we've got in front of us today. But I'd like to coin the collegiate special, where you take your opponent's map pick after you took theirs or they took yours the first time. So I would not be surprised at all if the collegiate special comes rearing its ugly head once again in this fine evening. And Georgia Tech could very well take this second map. It is Cafe, of course, that Oklahoma have decided to head to tonight. And now, as we start our ban phase, we're going to have to see exactly what kind of cafe we have in store for us.
Thatcher's the default ban for just about every team, but the next attacker ban has a lot of avenues you can go down. You can bring out a Capital to shut down pixel play. Now, sure, we're not in utility consumption simulator anymore, but Capital is still a strong operator. You can ban out an Ace who received a lot of play in map number 1, but another attacker that received just as much play was actually that Twitch. She was helping open up walls, but more importantly, she was destroying those ADSs so the attackers can send frag grenades downrange and kill those deployable shields.
An interesting ban, to say the least, but seems like you can more or less support that one, Chief, so I will jump on that bus as well. We'll say the Twitch ban, it's acceptable. She's a lot more viable now that the flashbangs are a thing, and now we are going to see Twitch increasingly come into the competitive meta just a little bit here or there, especially if you know some good spots to use that Twitch drone to the best of its ability. And with a Goyo ban and an Echo ban rounding us off, we won't be seeing the Vulcan shields or the Yokai drones in play whatsoever on Cafe. But that does mean there are 3 very strong defensive operators that are on the board. I'm thinking of Mira, Maestro, and Valkyrie, the 3 information lords of Rainbow Six Siege. You can have copious amount of information at your fingertips, a couple of black eyes, a couple of evil eyes, and a couple of black mirrors, all can really make the attackers have a terrible time approaching the site. Not only because a mirror staring them in the face is terrifying, but with all the information at the fingertips of the defenders, there is very little even the most competent attacking teams will be able to do to stop the C4s and the vertical destruction from getting the better of them.
Well, everything you just listed is going to be here. Those mirror windows are in play, the Maestro cameras, now the Valkyrie Evil Eyes won't be here, but it's still enough information the defense has that the attackers have to be sweating in their boots. Hopefully their drones confirm the location of all these points of utility and the attackers are able to break it down. It's going to be difficult to do so, and this is a phenomenal way of going back to the original way of pushing bar. That was from underneath. You take reading room, you send your buck and play. He skeleton keys as the entire side of Cocktail, removing Maestro spot, which is also known as C1, which is the northmost bar in Cocktail. And then you send a frag grenade sky high. Now, Buck doesn't have frag grenades anymore, so he's going to have to call on Kung Fu, the sledge, to help fill that role. But nonetheless, Oklahoma has plenty of tools to do a different style of execute and basically bypass Georgia Tech's utility.
Well, the utility in that pixel position will be a factor. Despite the meta change and despite the changes to both Jaeger and Wamai, it is still a very viable position to hold, although it is easier to force that player out in due time rather than forcing, at least a minute or a minute and a half off the clock with just that position. But it's Turks who will not be making an impact at all in this round. Jello Shots is going to make a big defensive bang early on and remove the Zofia, a crucial operator for any attack with an incredible amount of utility to remove deployable shields and a lot of gadgets like those Evil Eyes, and not to mention a big fragger of Turks is off the board. But now Rush, creeping up the white stairs, is going to have to deal with this Jaeger who is positioned on that white stairs landing. But the Jaeger doesn't seem to be fully aware that this push is coming. There is barbed wire to alert him of that position, but Rush should get quick on this push, and he will. The pre-fire will not connect, though, but finally it will land the headshot, and Jello Shots will be cut down. Squash looks to find the refrag, but the Buck is too elusive thus far.
Honestly, I would have gone into that gunfight with the shotgun in hand since he does have access to that skeleton key, but it really doesn't matter. since Rush was able to be successful with that kill. But here comes the most important part of his job, removing the cocktail ceiling. And he only has 70 seconds to do so. That is not enough time. And everybody in Oklahoma is really struggling with time aspects. They haven't identified any of the mini games, and they haven't dealt with them yet. Pixel is still being occupied. Part of that checklist is dealing with Pixel and the first 60 seconds of the round. Utility Consumption Simulator is back in full effect, and they have to deal with mirror windows as well. It's an impossible scenario, and Oklahoma needs to change where their barrels are looking, because if they don't, they're going to be gunned down on the west side of the map.
Well, these mirror windows are really just too much for Kung Fu and Rush to handle. Rush avoiding them completely and trying to get some vertical play from down in pillars, but it is going to be too little too late with only 20 seconds left and very little health to work with and pretty much no information to go off of. And staring down a mirror window, Rush has very little that they will be able to do to get this one going. Squash is going to push on through the Toxic Babe detonating. Squash is going to do a little bit of a ring around the rosy here with Rush, and well, Rush is going to get cut down in due time. And Georgia Tech with a round number 1 win, and I'd argue that the large majority of the reason that Oklahoma struggled there was because you lost your Zofia. That was your operator that you were banking on to get the player out of Pixel. And because of that, it took forever to get piano control. In fact, they never really got piano control because of the mirror window, and that attack simply was over before it even got started.
The attackers are just too slow. They need to identify what went wrong, and that was, again, Zofia being killed earlier. But I would argue that it's identifying the minigames. And when you're in IGL, the minigames are going to be the bits of utility, the Maestro Evil Eyes, the playable shields, and the mirrors. You're going to have to break those down. And when you make that identification, Zofia being over by the white stairs, well, she'll never be in that scenario. She's going to be over on the east side of the map, either upside down repelled to send her concussions downrange, followed by her impact grenades, or she's going to be in the skylight trying to do something similar. Now, the skylight's a little bit too high risk, so I'd still prefer her on the east side of the map. But again, it's going to be on the IGL to actually first identify it, rotate the utility on over, and then destroy the defender's utility in turn. But at least for the attackers, they've identified how Georgia Tech is going to be playing upstairs, and when they go back there in round number 4, they can at least have a preset macro strategy.
5 seconds remaining.
Well, the macro strategy for this attack is usually that top-down clear. That's something you expect to see, and generally a very effective approach on this site. But if there's a lot of extended roam presence, you're going to want to change things up a little bit if you struggle to deal with those early in the series. And you're going to have to find another way to approach this kitchen bomb site. Often we will see attacking teams go for a freezer take or a bakery take, a very direct approach to get first floor control and storm straight on into the site. But with these castle barricades and with these extended players here in Whiskey Bar, it is not going to be easy to get this control going. But Turks is looking to start things off in style, and he will do that. The headshot delivered onto the castle. Thunderhawk is cut down, and now Squash is the remaining player on this extension here in coat check, looking towards Christmas.
An impeccable read by the IGL of Oklahoma, and now they have part of the map in their hands. But what's going to be more important is going to be coat check, this long angle being held by Squash. He just gets pre-fired into an absolute oblivion. Good night, sleep tight, as he gets tucked away nicely into his bed. Members of Georgia Tech are playing this far too passively. They're sitting and dying. That was a no information swing, a very common angle, and a more common pre-fire. If you know defenders are going to be in that location and have the opportunity of being there, a couple well-placed bullets down range are all you need, and it's a great way to confirm that kill. And now the defenders are going to have to hide back in their bomb site and try to hold as much real estate as possible, and it's not looking great.
Well, this is the exact opposite of what we saw in the previous round. Now it's Georgia Tech who keep getting cut down one at a time, and Kung Fu to round it out, and Oklahoma go from looking like they were unable to do anything to taking a flawless attacking round, and they shut down Georgia Tech with ease. What an absolute 180 we just witnessed from Oklahoma, and now we're sitting at 1-1. It's anyone's game here on Cafe, and Oklahoma are looking to recover from that early blunder and keep things going with full force.
So let's talk about the differences between round one and round two. In round one, the defenders were able to utilize the buffer room, which means the surrounding rooms of the bomb site, and hold them for as long as possible, hold them for the entire duration of the round. But in round two, the buffer rooms and the macro strategy that defense attempted to bring out didn't work because they weren't able to hold it. They had players set up on islands by themselves. A quick drone confirms the location of one over by Whiskey, and all you need to do is a double crossfire. And that castle is going to have to decide who is the bigger threat, the one coming through the VIP window or the one coming from the white VIP hallway itself. And the answer to that question is both of them are an equal threat, and you're not going to be able to win that gunfight. You just have to decide, who am I going to shoot first and die in this process. And then the same scenario happens to Squash over by Kochek. He's on an island by himself. He's going to be threatened by multiple attackers from multiple positions, and he's caught looking the wrong way. Georgia Tech needs to make those identifications ASAP and change up their strategy. Maybe the changeup is to hold more map control. It's going to be starting on the second and third floor, doing a true staged drone.
Seconds left.
Well, that would absolutely be an adaptation, but so would a little bit of the VIP presence. Often we will see teams opt to put a shield and a smoke behind that shield over in VIP. You put an ADS in front of that, and it's a very strong position to hold early in the round. And the early map control that was taken over by tables there and over by VIP from Oklahoma was simply because there was no utility other than a simple castle barricade, really just blocking off a long angle to step in their way. More than that is going to be needed to slow down an aggressive Oklahoma affront on this particular site. And it looks like nothing is changing here in round number 3. We have the same exact hold. You have your Jaeger on that extension, now roaming upstairs to avoid being killed early, and you have your castle behind Whiskey Bar. This is no change here made from this Georgia Tech team, but the one change that does happen is Jello Shots finds an early pick. Maybe that was the change that needed to happen, but it's not one that you can rely on. And Jack Whiskey will make that abundantly clear by delivering the castle to his early grave.
The kill that Castle got was not because of the defender's strategy, it was because the attackers didn't play as a team. Ash played as an individual, she pushed too soon, and she died as a result. And you can see Oklahoma rectify that mistake almost instantaneously. They call for extra help, and Jack Whiskey just pops on it and gets that kill. Phenomenal use of multi-angle crossfires. Oklahoma has a good understanding of how to execute on their map, but things might be stalling out. This is the problem with the linear take. Once you stop clicking heads, your strategy begins to fall. You need to keep your rhythm up throughout the round and always hitting those headshots and swinging for the fences.
Well, Serbin will find something by swinging for the fences. Jack Whiskey's the next player to be cut down after Jack Whiskey's early performance, taking out that extension, and now Turks is going to be looking to fill the position of Jack Whiskey. They know that there is a Wamai in Harry Potter, but how to deal with him is the question. You've got Wise Shogun here, the player to contest a possible default plant, but Kung Fu making his presence felt by removing Thunderhawk, and the double coverage here by Issues will remove the Maestro. It's all up to Serbin, caught out in the hallway by Small, and that is going to be a non-successful position to hold. Turks finds the shots, and Oklahoma find another successful kitchen attack.
The defenders of Georgia Tech need to remove that castle barricade. It's not working out well for them. Sure, it's somewhat hindering the attackers from wide swinging in to the long bar of Whiskey, but they're still able to do so. The defenders need to hold more map control. The buff rooms they have just aren't working out well, and it seems like Oklahoma has a perfect understanding of downstairs. So after we conclude round 4, no matter how this goes for Georgia Tech, they need to deliver themselves to the tertiary bomb site. That's usually going to be reading and feeding. And that's a great bomb site. That's a bomb site that pioneered the staged roam, which is designed to snipe away those drones and retreat. And also, you can use your coveted Mira to waste time on the east side or the west side of Piano.
Yeah, that's a fair point. This is why a lot of teams often prefer to go with those tertiary and quaternary bomb sites and maybe neglect that top floor or that kitchen hold. And the reason is because a top floor hold is what you put down even when you go to mining and fireplace or reading and fireplace. You still put a lot of utility on the top floor. You can use a mirror window effectively. You can use all the same operators that you would, but the one catch is that now the attackers not only have to take the top floor control that is so hard to get, but then, and only then, can they extend the pressure onto reading room. And if a top floor hold is struggling for time and a bottom floor hold is just simply not delaying the attackers enough, maybe you want to go something in the middle ground. Quite literally, go to the middle floor, use that top floor hold that works so well in round number 1, and combine that with a lot of time wasting with that extension, and combine that with some very calculated and placed utility from this defense that they clearly know how to do, and you'll get a couple of rounds under your belt just like that.
I would like to see the attackers either push in through the gears window, which is on the west side of the map on the second floor, or just full send on the east cocktail windows. After all, the attackers are bringing a Blackbeard who has a face shield, so you can just upside down repel. The defenders are going to have to shoot you in the face twice before that shield ends up breaking, so it can work out perfectly. You just have to hope and pray that Rush has a quick trigger finger. But instead of having a upside down repel strategy, I think Oklahoma is just going to be dry peeking the skylight. Each to their own, but that's not the strategy that I think is optimal for that level of utility being committed.
Well, so far, very little progress made here, but with boots on the ground at 2 minutes, that is generally a good checkpoint for any successful attack. But boots on the ground is not enough, Chief. You have to get that pressure going into Piano and clear out the pixel player. This is very indicative of the previous meta that we're in, but it's still a factor, a very ever-present factor that if not dealt with, there's no shot that Oklahoma will be able to take this round. Serban is content to sit here and hold the Nubalk from the soft destruction and hold this pixel shield and the white hallway. And Thunderhawk is content to just click on heads, and the Zofia off the board. This is exactly what Oklahoma struggled with last time. How do they take Piano without Turks?
You send firebolts down range, but since basically those pancakes get better and better with age, instead of molding and turning nasty, he gets more and more in his back pocket. Kung Fu needs his teammates to do a full utility dump. There goes some of those my pancakes being burned, and there goes the firebolts, but Kung Fu overextends his welcome, showing his forehead to the bullets, and he loses his life as a result of it. Bad roam clear and bad utility dump by Oklahoma. Now the Blackbeard is able to save the round partly by bringing that man disadvantage at a +2 back to equal count. So how will Oklahoma deal with this? They're going to need to deal with Piano. They have to take control of the West, but mirror windows are still stopping the process. But Rush is just better in every one of these scenarios.
This round has turned from a brilliant defensive performance and great passive play to an absolute disaster, and Squash getting cut down by Rush, who is on a tear with a face shield, is now the only player remaining is this Jaeger. Jello Shots has to clutch it up, and Rush, a 4K, will shut that down. I mean, you've got to applaud the 4K, but you do not have to applaud the use of a face shield in a game that relies on headshots. But regardless, that was a disaster of a defense for Georgia Tech. It was going so well, and when the Wamai decided to reload, standing up behind a deployable shield, everything collapsed from that point forward. Every single defender started to get their head taken clean off by a Blackbeard, and all of a sudden, the round was over. The map control was surrendered, and the diffuser was going down. I cannot believe that round unfolded in the way that it did, simply because it looked like Georgia Tech were going to take another brilliant bar defense, but it simply was not in the cards.
I don't have a problem with Black being played. He can actually be a good operator if your design is to get kills. And Rush being the primary entry, well, I guess that's his role. However, I'd like to see him being utilized more as a apex position where he's forced to hold an angle or he's forced to challenge gun points and choke points, but instead he's acting as just this wall that walks into sight. And most competent defensive teams are going to see the Blackbeard in play, they're going to hear his DMR, and they're going to be pushing him and swinging on him together. And that's where Oklahoma starts to fail. They aren't playing defense as a cohesive unit. They're just saying, all right, well, your job is to hold Pixel, have fun doing so. Mira, your job is to hold pallets, have fun doing so. You have one zone to cover, and it's your solo zone. Instead, Georgia Tech needs to say, hey, all 5 of us, our job is to hold the entire zone of bar, not just one individual. And if we get pressured, I call for help and you help me.
Is to defuse a bomb.
And of course, Chief, there's a time and a place for those individual plays. Sometimes there are situations where slapping someone behind a mirror window and saying, hold this side of the map, please, is actually viable. But
Yes.
the problem is when you're staring down, a Blackbeard, like you said, and when you're staring down an attack that more or less is pretty coordinated when it comes down to it, it's just not going to go your way if every single player is elected to just stare at one particular area, lock it down as best you can. And one simple mistake can be the end of any defensive hold. Normally, if one player makes a little bit of a blunder, as long as you have your teammates there to back you up, they can swing on the angle, they can play your trade, maybe you'll be just fine in the end. But if your individual play is shining above all else, and those individuals can't make it happen, that's where things get awfully concerning. And we talked a little bit about this on Oregon, how those individual players were really putting on a lot of the weight and shouldering a lot of that responsibility. And if Oklahoma are going to play this well for the rest of this map, Georgia Tech are going to have to do something more than rely on their big guns.
Well, Blackbeard has a down but not out player, and Wamai's able to get a refrag. And there's Thunderhawk getting rezzed. He called for the help, and that is the adaptation that Georgia Tech needed. They need to be playing with their teammates more. And Serbain has rotated away from his deployable shield, but deep behind the piano itself. And here's the help he's called. Jaeger is here. All the adaptations in the world are being made by Georgia Tech. They all line up for Serbain, and they get knocked down. A spicy showing by Georgia Tech. They've been lackluster upstairs, but lackluster no more.
And all of a sudden, it is a Blackbeard and an ace. I mean, you got 2 really strong operators here. You've got an excellent gun and an excellent amount of utility from Issues, and you've got a face shield, both full health, to do this. But with only a minute to work with and 5 defenders happy to just sit back and wait, this one is a very tough task. Issues will now be swinging on Nubalk, hoping to force out this smoke. They've got the pings. They know exactly where he's positioned, but do they know how to effectively take them out? Now positioned in what is generally known as Shiko, I believe. That's going to be Thunderhawk waiting for this, or Highway maybe? This is Highway? Is that what you call it? So that position is Shiko? Well, Issues is going to take out the player not on Shiko, but on Pixel. And Serban will be the next to fall. Rush will keep it going by finding another pick onto Thunderhawk. And now only 3 defenders remain, but only 25 seconds remain for these attackers to make their presence felt.
The mirror window is going to be the bane of the attackers. Blackbeard's shield will be spotted over to the west, but no shots from Mira, trying to play that trigger discipline perfectly. And the other part of the defender's utility, those Meister Evil Eyes are providing just as much information. It's going to force Ace to utilize his smoke grenades and try to cut off those angles. Blackbeard's the perfect operator, go for the cover. The DMR is going to start to go burst, sending bullets down range. He has no idea where he's being shot, but the attackers of Oklahoma find themselves in a post plan. 1v1 with a guaranteed 38 seconds of the round, but Oklahoma and the 2v5 brings the round back. A miraculous save, a miracle in the round. All you need is to have your guns light up.
I am in utter disbelief. Utter disbelief right now that is the way it unfolded. Props to Oklahoma, props to Issues and Rush for making it happen when the odds were heavily stacked against them. Wow. A simply beautiful 2v4 or 2v5. A simply beautiful 2v5. They got the plant down. They played every situation to their advantage. They used the Blackbeard to his best ability. Get a little bit of a head glitch on that bar while covering the planter and just mow down the retaking defenders. A disaster for Georgia Tech just occurred. This map is now slipping away from their fingertips. They look so strong round after round, but when it comes down to those closing 20 seconds, it all seems to collapse around them. Something isn't clicking for Georgia Tech, and it is still a problem. They have not solved it, and it is a problem that Oklahoma are continuing to punish brutally round after round.
I mean, Serbain and Jello shots were perfect in that round. They played together. They got the 3 opening kills. And then the remaining members of Georgia Tech were like, you know what? I want to pad my stats. I want kills. And they absolutely threw that round. When you have man advantage, it's so important that you play with it. I don't want to be too critical of Georgia Tech,
Attackers
but
must locate
Georgia
and
Tech
defuse a bomb.
is on defense on Cafe, one of the more defender-sided maps, and they're just making very silly mistakes. And we've seen Georgia Tech be capable of greatness, not only in postseason, but in the regular season itself. And the Georgia Tech that is currently showing up against Oklahoma just seems to be a little bit lost, like the lost puppy trying to find its way back to its home.
Well, the home will now be the roof for most of these attackers, as the plan would be to especially get that top-down attack going. But Issues in Kung Fu will be prioritizing the pressure from this mining balk, and they're going to try to take control from this side. There are two defenders generally placed near this area, as well as a castle barricade to lock off this side of the map from Fireplace as much as they can. Now, attackers often try to go for some crazy rushes on Fireplace simply because it is such an uncommon take. Normally, you'll see teams go for the vertical play and go for Reading Room, but Turks is going to start things off and look like this mining, or at least this Fireplace play, is going to go down successfully right now. There is a player on White Stairs to deal with, but right now, Turks is on the hunt for more frags and on the hunt for more map control, doing exactly what an entry fragger should be doing, taking the shots on towards Squash. Squash is not able to answer back, and then now Wise Shogun is here to support. The attackers have telegraphed their position and their intent to take this dining room or this Fireplace hall take. But is that going to be done, especially with all this soft destruction and the fact that there is people lurking around every corner to shut this push down?
This is a terrifying position to be in for the defenders. They know where the attackers are, but they haven't really done their homework in the setup of this bomb site. You need to have more murder holes on the side of Fireplace, or as I like to call it, reading and feeding. Part of the site is reading, and the other A-bomb site is feeding. Just sounds funny, but nonetheless, the attackers need to change up their linear push because they're all looking in one direction. They understand the defenders have the option of swinging from the pillar side of the map, which is from the north, but just smoke dumping the site probably won't be good enough since Maestro is in play. He can see through the smokes with his gadgetry, and the full send from Oklahoma is going to cost them two of their players' lives. A phenomenal position to be from Georgia Tech, but here comes the miraculous banana plays from Oklahoma. Every single time their strategy fails, their guns start to light up, and you have Rush and Kung Fu back at it again. That dynamic duo, but with the diffuser surrender on the other side, the bomb side, it's going to be almost impossible. Sir Bane's going to overextend his life. He should have been playing the clock, but he was getting too aggressive. He wants to pad his stats once again, and here's Oklahoma. They're in this round. Georgia Tech has allowed it to slip through their fingertips. It's all on smoke. The SMG-11
Oh my
Pro
goodness.
doesn't have the gadgetry. He doesn't have the utility. Two clutches in a row, back to back for Oklahoma.
Oh my goodness. Chief, what is going on here? What is going on? This is a mind-boggling series, or at least a mind-boggling map. Things on Oregon, sure, there was some weird stuff, but for the most part, it was just a simple attacker-sided Oregon. And while we don't say that often, you never say a 5-1 attacker-sided cafe with a multiple 1vx's or 2v5s or whatever we just witnessed. I mean, ridiculous clutches from Oklahoma. I think you said it perfectly, Chief. When the strat book fails them, they will simply toss it to the side and they will click heads for head. I mean, that is exactly what they did, and it worked perfectly for them. Again, that's 2 rounds in a row where the odds were fully stacked against them, and it didn't seem to matter. Oklahoma is simply built different, and they are just built better. And they literally just stormed in and won a round that they had no business winning whatsoever. It's all falling apart for Georgia Tech, sitting at 5-1 now, going into the defensive half on their own map pick. I would expect Oklahoma to take this right here.
You know, round 5 and round 6 are reasons why we play Rainbow Six Siege. The cards are stacked against you, but you have one goal, is to win the round, and by any means necessary, you will accomplish that goal. Oklahoma is just facing the wall, and by somewhere, somehow, they call to the universe, and they bring a nuclear bomb to destroy the wall that is Georgia Tech. Phenomenal showing by them, but as you're highlighting, now Georgia Tech has to go over to attack. have to walk through all the utility that Oklahoma is setting up. Now, I'm going to be a little bit critical of Oklahoma for not utilizing those mirror windows, but I call it the mirror fallacy. Mirror is banned so often in scrims that when she's available to you in a live match, well, you're never going to play her because you don't have the strategies and you don't have the experience with her.
Well, we know that a great attacking team can deal with a mirror swiftly. That's simply, a fact of the matter is that you need to know how to play an operator well in order to make them useful. Simply putting a mirror window down is intimidating, sure, but if you don't set it up properly, if you don't play it properly, then it doesn't matter if you bring the operator, it's not going to work. So maybe, like you said, Chief, this defense, they don't simply know the best way to play mirror, and they feel that their resources can be best used in a different way. And it appears that the Mozzie play from below is going to be how Turks is going to use that time and resources, and this could be pretty effective. A C4 raining from below and piano is always a good way to shut down an early attacking push into this position, but the attackers are taking their sweet time to get into the building right now. We're sitting at a minute 40, and we don't yet have boots on the ground. We've got Squash on the stage rappel, and we've got attackers on the roof. This is going to need to speed up here for Georgia Tech because the time is starting to tick away. And if you let that time go down, it's going to get very hairy when this take actually needs to come through.
And Georgia Tech should have seen this meta before. This is 3 metas ago, utilizing Mute Mozzie to deny entry and deny drones. The best way of bypassing that meta is to swing and click heads. Jack Whiskey has learned that lesson the hard way, as he's overextended his welcome, and so will Rush. Stop peeking the angle. You know Georgia Tech has locked it on down. Ill-advised and unbridled aggression has cost them their lives, and Oklahoma's going to be forced to go deeper into the cocktail bomb site and try to hold from deep line angles.
Well, these are going to be tough positions to hold and also tough positions to attack. They're very hard stuck positions that you have to use quite a bit of utility to force them out, and Wise Shogun will do exactly that. The headshot delivered with the Cali sniper, and goodbye issues. It's Turks and it's Kung Fu, the last remaining defenders to lock this one down, but Kung Fu is deep by Stacks and Freezer, and it's going to be hard to make that position viable, but Turks is going to be fine in Cocktail, finding the head of Squash, looks for a second, but Wise Shogun, hello! The Cali sniper delivers Turks to his grave, and it's all up to the Jaeger. The 416 is not going to connect those first shots, and now in a 1v3, Kung Fu's going to need to make something happen, swinging around from deep Freezer. It's Jello shots to find the head, and Georgia Tech will take round 7 and make us dangerously close to what could be an attacker-sided cafe if things continue in this manner.
Georgia Tech did a great job of exploiting the weakness in the site set up by Oklahoma. You can see Oklahoma had created a nice long line of sight into the south side of Piano. The reason they did that was to have the smoke and or the ACOG player, I guess they don't have an ACOG anymore, the 2x player of Rook to wide swing that position. The problem was, I don't think they realized that the attackers, and particularly a Cali, can be repelled on the other side of Piano, hold a pixel angle, and just obliterate you from outside in the grapes. That is a setup and a functional problem that needs to be addressed right now by Oklahoma. And when you're doing something called a map teardown, you remove the entire walls of a map, and then you try to find every single angle. That means you have some people on attack looking down and try to find exactly what Cali exploited. So when you go to build your strategy, you know you're not going to die to that position. And Oklahoma just didn't accomplish their test. They didn't pass their test, and they ended up failing it.
Well, the blunder on that top floor will make Oklahoma head back to this, or head to the kitchen site rather, for the first time in this round. On the first side of the split, we saw Georgia Tech go here numerous occasions, and the strategy that they employed, the castle presence on this site, failed miserably twice in a row. And it looks like the castle play is going to actually come into effect for Oklahoma as well. We do have a smoke, and we do have that deployable shield, but where Rush is going to use that is the question. And if you're castling off this white hall, you're going to put Rush here in VIP. It's an interesting position, and one that you're not going to be able to support Rush from because of that castle barricade. And so it's going to have to be important to see exactly what Georgia Tech can do. Turks is going to rain a C4 down, but it's going to be ill-advised. and it will not find its blow. So that is going to be a wasted C4 and a wasted bit of utility 30 seconds into the round.
I guess one of the drones for Georgia Tech was killed, so it's not totally wasted, but that comes down to the opportunity cost of utility. A nitrous cell for a drone isn't really as powerful as it should be. 2 frag grenades go downtown, and they won't find its target whatsoever. And that is the attacker's opportunity cost of utility. You have to drone out where Mozzie is playing so you can send your utility in a controlled manner. You want to land it perfectly at its feet. Now, Georgia Tech's adaptation will be putting somebody on the backside of that APC unit for the elevated position, but it might be a little bit too late because if Zofia was there sooner, they would have definitely got the kill on the Mozzie.
Well, it appears that round number 8 is unfolding in the everybody swing double door and bakery and hope to force out this half-wall player. And eventually, that strategy will work. Jello Shots finds the head of Turks, and so now your half-wall presence in bakery is forfeit. And now Kung Fu is forced to fall back towards the site. And now Wise Shogun, using this soft destruction, this hard destruction rather, will look on into prep, while Issues finds Jello Shots to get the retaliating blow. A nice long angle there deep in service. Now only 4 attackers remain, and they're all bunched up on this bakery side. So if you're Oklahoma right now, you have to assess the situation, realize that every attacker is coming from bakery, and use the vertical pressure to your advantage, rather than to the advantage of the attackers. Go above prep, go above kitchen, and lock down the default plant spots. But with Squash and Thunderhawk finding their targets, it is Issues cut down, and it is Rush and Jack Whiskey all that remains. And now with the site control nearly in their arms, it is going to be very hard for Georgia Tech to lose this round at this point. Serbin and Squash will make that prediction come to fruition, as Jack Whiskey and Rush will have no part in this one, and Oklahoma won't have a chance either. Another brilliant attack from Georgia Tech and an uncharacteristically uncoordinated defense from Oklahoma.
Have we just found ourselves an attacker-sided cafe? The attackers are doing so many things right. They're playing as a roster and they're winning their gunfights. It's this weird position the defenders find themselves in. They're too passive, but yet too aggressive at the same time. They don't know when to swing angles. And I guess we can't be too surprised with that, because in map number 1, Oregon, we were in a very similar situation, but instead it was the attackers' turn to be a little bit too aggressive. But also, we saw the freezer kind of be a blunder for the defenders, where that was the one area of the map where the defenders were like, you know what, I want to die here. And it seems like the entire downstairs bomb site, the defenders sit back, relax, and get shot in the forehead.
Well, it seems that the castle play is going to be a factor once again. All eyes are going to be if the castle barricades move their positionings, but all things point to an identical strategy coming out from Oklahoma. But the big thing that always gets me confused, Chief, is why defenders don't use the vertical play to their advantage as much as we see from them, especially when it's an all-out bakery push. We have not seen at all so far on Cafe. In the this is the 4th time now that we're gonna see the kitchen bomb site in play. Not once have we seen a top-down vertical take that often is very successful for the attack. And whether that's because these attacking teams believe that there's gonna be a lot of roamers up there, whether they believe that it's gonna be a wasted amount of time, that they don't have what it takes to clear it efficiently, you can't be entirely sure why. But you have to be aware that, well, it's another bakery send. It is another full-out bakery push, but this time, the vertical play has been used. You've got a Vigil, that's Turks upstairs, using that prep ceiling to their advantage, and they'll be looking to stall out this push before it can get started.
The way to make this position stronger, though, is not to throw your impact grenade there, but to bring a secondary shotgun at some point and make multiple small holes. Because if you make this giant hole, your head is going to be seen a lot easier. But if you have these small, like 2-inch by 2-inch holes between those metal rafters, you can basically put yourself in a perfect position where your head doesn't look like it's showing through, because they're only going to see a little bit of it. How the gun mechanics work is your eyeballs are where your gun barrel truly is. And normally your gun barrel would be somewhere else. That's just how, actually, I think it's on your ears. The gun barrel is actually on your ears in Rainbow Six Siege, not into your eyes, which doesn't make sense, but that's a lot how you wide swing in this game. But nonetheless, the reason you make those small holes is just to have yourself in an advantageous angle.
Well, the advantageous angle of that prep ceiling is not going to be taken up by Turks anymore now that the top-down clear is actually coming into effect. For the first time, we're going to see Georgia Tech go for the clear, and they've done a great job of clearing Turks out. The Vigil has been forced to rotate away from that prep position because of the vertical play brought in play, but Serban is going to get all the way up into prep? Hello? Issues is going to just punish that right away. Brilliant work from the Kaid, but a blunder from Serban to think that that position was wise to take up. And now Thunderhawk is going to eat a little bit of this Toxic Babe. The Kaid is going to be shift Wing around the site. It's all going crazy here. But with 50 seconds left in this round, it's up to Georgia Tech to get this attack going. And without any walls open, it's simply going to be a crouch walk into sight for Thunderhawk, hoping to find a round like this.
Thunderhawk is perplexed why he can't open up that wall, but he might not need to. He can just work his way out into kitchen itself, but he still has to deal with the deployable shield. Now, he is ace, which means he can send a Selma charge down range. The Selma charge will land on the deployable shield and end up destroying it. And it just comes back to what his utility is worth. But since he can't open the west side of the map, he should just go and send it. But where are the Toxic Babes? They've been already used. Thunderhawk is going to complete the bomb, and here we go to the post plant. But it won't matter, as everybody from Oklahoma is able to find their kills. Issues being choked away, but he's just going to stick through the diffuser, and Oklahoma finds himself moving on to match point, series point, and moving on to the next round of playoffs.
Well, that round was probably the most bizarre round that we've seen so far. We've seen rounds with tremendous clutches and tremendous throws, and we also watched that round. That round had a little bit of everything. I'm not sure exactly, how to put my finger on that one or describe what we just witnessed to you, but really it was simply the attackers had no idea how to push into that site. They could not remove the invincible Electroclaw from the bakery wall, so it was a crouch walk into prep and push on in that kitchen door strategy, and one that failed miserably, especially with that retake from Oklahoma being so successful. And generally, I like to focus on very strong plays from teams and the things that teams do well rather than the things that teams do wrong. But I gotta say, it wasn't what Oklahoma did well there. It was what Georgia Tech did wrong. That attack had no chance of succeeding from the moment it got started. They had a little bit of a disjointed push. They did a great job early on forcing out the Vigil. That was one thing they did. They did a brilliant job of realizing what was going on, pivoting their resources and their time, and doing it in the next 20 seconds. They dealt with the Vigil right away. But from that point forward, the success would be no more. No more success was found in the round, and it was all downhill from there.
I'm so excited. There's a Warden in play. The most dapper individual in Rainbow Six Siege is going to be saying hello. But what's concerning me is they don't have a Smoke in play. Smoke has been a great operator at delaying time. You can even see it in the previous round where Thunderhawks was forced to either stick or choke to death. He elected to stick, and that cost him his life because the attackers heard him choke, or the defenders heard him choking in the smoke, and a quick wide swing was good enough. Now, if you put your Warden over in Washroom, where the deployable shield is currently being placed, this can be a very strong position, particularly if attackers are very confident. You can pop flash that couch, flash banging the player behind Pixel Shield, which isn't in play, and a Warden will just say, "Thank you so much for flashing me. I'm going to turn my glasses on now."
Well, it seems that the Warden, like you said, positioned in that bathroom there, holding that position rather than a pixel hold that we've grown accustomed to in our previous meta, and in a large part for the most of this matchup. The Mozzie Mute combo is once again in play from Oklahoma, and they're going to do their best to make it work this time around. They've got ample utility to stop this information. The information denial kings are in play, but somehow Serban's drone is going to get on through, eventually gets shut down there, but now they need to get the knowledge that they've taken. They need to now use that to their advantage and actually get the pressure going. Last time Georgia Tech didn't get on the ground, didn't get piano control until about 50 seconds remaining in the round, and somehow found a win nonetheless. But Jack Whiskey is going to start things off with a bang. Squash is no more, and the MPX will do its job in this round. Here comes that C4, though. Will it do its job? Yes! Serban was on the drone and got obliterated. Sent sky high. Only 3 Georgia Tech attackers remain, and now they're playing for their Winter 2021 lives, and they are looking to bring it back, but it's going to be a tough challenge to say the least.
Something that was concerning me, that the defenders weren't playing the drone game enough. They weren't utilizing the staged roam, and they weren't sniping away the drones. But the drones were lackluster, to say the least, from Georgia Tech, and they never found their targets, which allowed them to get wide swing. Issue's gonna get absolutely eviscerated as his forehead was spotted over by the Heaven Bar, overextending his welcome. And this is a great avenue for the attackers to be in, since they're one step closer to bringing us back to equal man count. And there's Jello Shot's kill. Things are looking even worse for Oklahoma, as it's now their turn to play too aggressive, not playing off each other and not playing off the single deployable shield. But with 45 seconds left, Georgia Tech has to regroup, send the remaining drones down range, locate members of Oklahoma, and go out for that final execute.
Well, the final execute is tempting over on this Cigar side, but they haven't fully made their decision yet, and it might be a flank inbound. Nope, it's a team kill. Jello Shots finds ahead of Thunderhawk. Kung Fu follows that one up with Jello Shots taken down. Essentially a trade on the round, but this one heavily in the favor of Oklahoma, and it's a Cali. All that remains, a 1v3 for their tournament lives. Wise Shogun gonna swing on through one. That's a good night for Kung Fu. Two more to find. Now swinging over in the bathroom, knows where the player is. That's a good night for Jack Whiskey. Only one more now. It's Rush, who dropped downstairs, but the time is gone. The plant has to be stuck. A Hail Mary C4 will be nowhere near the right plant spot. So now it is a post plant, and Rush is on the back foot. Now the defenders have become the attackers, and the SMG-11 Blow's gonna have to find the shot, but it's a trade, and Georgia Tech win it because the diffuser was on the ground, and it will be a round for Georgia Tech. They will stay in this game.
Great crosshair placement by both of those players, but when you have the man advantage and a 1v3, please play with your teammates. Try to hold cross angles. Don't go to 1v1s. Callie has the pocket F2, and it's quite a good gun. Sure, her sniper rifle is cumbersome, but an incredibly brilliant throw by Oklahoma. That is a mistake that they have to rectify. And Oklahoma had 2 rounds of attack that they found themselves at victory because Georgia Tech did the exact same thing. They had a man advantage, and they decided to play as individuals. And now this is revenge for Georgia Tech as they get one back on Oklahoma. And if the motif continues to repeat itself, it might be another clutch from Georgia Tech.
I mean, I think we need a running tally of, 2v5s, like big 1vx's or 2vx's that should have gone heavily in the favor of a defending team, but then some god tier play from the attackers and some less so god tier play from the defenders have really resulted in a plethora of antics so far tonight, and a plethora of clutches as well. So here in round number 11, with match points still a factor, Georgia Tech still on the edge of defeat, but Georgia Tech are not going to go down easy, and Oklahoma seem like they're opening the door just a crack for Georgia Tech to put their foot on through, and Oklahoma are going to have to slam that door in their face very quickly. Otherwise, Georgia Tech may come bursting on in, as they did in that last round. An almost impossible clutch. It really did seem impossible, but it was delivered nonetheless.
What concerns me about our previous round was the fact that Oklahoma, again, wasn't utilizing that staged roam. They weren't sniping away drones, and that allowed a lot of information for Georgia Tech to basically leak into the bomb site. Now, sure, the defenders were utilizing Mute Mozzie, but nonetheless, those drones were still providing information, and too much information, because when it came down to the final clutch scenario, there were drones abundant for Georgia Tech. But you can see that strategy coming through again. Some of the Georgia Tech drones are now being sniped by the Mute Jammer over in shops. And hopefully, Oklahoma is able to repeat their miraculous plays at the start of this round. Wide swings from deployable shields.
Well, now this piano take is going down, this time with the help of the Zofia, and you have the Warden, you've got Jack Whiskey, the player, to contest this. Last time, Jack Whiskey found a good bit of pressure here, but all the defenders, all of them, look at all 5, they're pressuring over, they're forced back all the way to Cocktail. This is a very simple hold for Oklahoma. hide in cocktail, and hope that Georgia Tech take a long time to get this plant down and hope for some sort of miraculous retake because they're all in the same spot. A couple of Hail Mary nades could be the end of all of these defenders' lives if they're not careful here. The Maestro Cam will find the information and some damage onto Squash is being pestered from all sides here, but with a minute 20 to go, the defenders are well off of that immediate site. The map control is easy for Georgia Tech to take here. Only one player is immediately contesting that, and that's Jack Whiskey here in Bathroom.
Now, you could have Rush swing out with the Nitro Cell to save his teammate if the wall was preset open, and it will be. That's going to be the northmost wall of Piano. An ill-advised swing on through the rappel animation was enough for the members of Oklahoma to hear that and go for full kills. And we've been in this scenario once before, with Oklahoma in control of a round, utilizing all their power positions, but Jack Whiskey is going to be down by the explosive of Ash, finished off now by Kerbian, and it's going to be a reverse Uno card for Georgia Tech. They have control of the west side of Piano, but they're going to have to find a few more kills as they still have a -1 man disadvantage as we dive sub 30.
Well, now sub 30 once again. It's going to have to be some miraculous play from Georgia Tech. Thunderhawk will start it off in style, but Kung Fu has the answer. Now a 2v3 or a 2v2 as Turks is down but not out. And here comes Wise Shogun. So powerful with this SMG as we've seen before, but needs to make up quite a bit of ground. The SMG-11 is going to miss the shots, cannot be controlled by Rush. Thunderhawk will escape his first fate, but Kung Fu with the F416 will finish it off. So will Rush, and it's all over. Oklahoma will take round 11. They will take their own map of Cafe, they will take the series, and they will move on to the round of 16. They will get out of this first round of the playoffs.
That was a rocky showing by both of these rosters. They made a lot of mistakes. I think they both learned a lot of lessons because, again, in Collegiate League, some of these players are relatively new to the competitive scene, and they're still trying to figure out the pacing that they want to have, not only in a round, but throughout a series. And Oklahoma, as we said throughout the cast, when their strategy failed, their mechanical skill showed and played. Now, Georgia Tech had moments of brilliance like that. We saw the packet F2 in a clutch scenario be able to win it out, but you cannot rely on clutches consistently to have you be the winner of Collegiate Series.
I think that is a fantastic point. We saw a lot of clutches go both ways, but it was the team that played a bit better at the end of the day that emerged victorious. And, we said that some were calling Oklahoma the underdogs. I was not. I thought that the strength of schedule really gave them the edge here, but it shook out in the way that it did. In Oklahoma, the 21st seed will take down that 12th seed and will move up into a coveted spot, moving ahead to the next round. And they've got a tough match on their hands next week. We can be sure of that. With all these teams working their way through, we've got Oklahoma State looking like they may end up, if they win their week 1 match, they will face Oklahoma in week 2, a rematch of a series that went all the way to the end of the line. But before we talk about that, and before we talk about this second matchup we've got for you tonight, we've got an interview on our hands with, of course, the winning team, Oklahoma Rush. First of all, congratulations on your victory, and tell me your initial thoughts coming off that sweaty match.
Ooh, thank you. Really, we really try to focus on attacking. Our attacking has been struggled, or I guess it's been a wild ride on attacking. So we really try to focus on attacking this week, and man, I think it paid off quite well. A lot of our rounds that we did win were on attacking, so we just try to go in different mindset than we usually had, and I mean, obviously it worked, and it paid off all the practice and everything.
Well, Chief, we're going to keep this interview nice and short, but I'll let you ask him a couple of questions before we move on through.
So I have to talk about Cafe and the reason you 6-picked away from the Ash and brought out the Blackbeard, which ended up in a 1vx scenario which you're able to win. What was the ideology behind that play?
Oh yeah. Well, my whole thought process was we couldn't deal with the mirror in the first round. We tried to deal with using a buck, and then we decided, you know what? The best way to get these mirrors off, just go in the windows. We realized where the mirrors were at, and I just thought, hey, the Blackbeard with the shield will help us out with those window repels just in case we did have to take gunfights on those windows. So I decided, you know what? Let's just bring the Blackbeard out, see how it works out, and obviously it worked out in our favor.
Perfect. Now, before I let you go, shout out to your university, any support staff you had, and everybody that helped you be successful today.
Yes, sir. Man, I have to say it before we go. Our coach Zesty used to be a former OK State player. Really kind of gave us the I guess attention that we needed in certain areas that kind of made us, I mean, win these rounds, going into playoffs and everything like that. So I would say shout out them and obviously the OU community.
Well, thank you
Perfectly
so
said.
much, Rush. Thank you for the interview. We once again congratulations on the victory, and we hope to see you again in the booth after a future victory down the line.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me.
Of course, have a great night.
Cheers.
Yeah, you too.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that will do it for our first series of the night. Georgia Tech could not take down Oklahoma, and Oklahoma prevailed, and they will move on to the next round of the playoffs. And we've got another great matchup on our hands. We've got Kettering, the number 1 seed in the Open Division playoffs, versus the number 32 seed, Oregon Institute of Technology. It'll be a good matchup, and we're going to take a look exactly how that one's going to play out and the kind of teams we've got in front of us just after this quick break. We're not going to be away too long, so stick with us.